If you've ever waited for a text that never came, if you've ever dressed up hoping he'd notice, and he didn't, if you've ever felt like you were auditioning for someone's love, then stop scrolling. This video is for you. Let's get one thing straight. You were not born to fight for someone's attention. You weren't created to beg for scraps of love, affection, or presence. That's not love. That's survival mode, disguised as romance. Right now, there are millions of women confusing emotional chasing with connection. But here's the truth. The moment you feel you have to earn attention, you've already placed your worth in someone else's hands. And that stops today. In the next 30 minutes, I'm not just going to tell you to be confident or focus on yourself. You've heard that before. I'm going to give you a psychological breakdown of why men pull away, and more importantly, how to shift the dynamic without manipulation. No games, no gimmicks, just power reclaimed, because the most magnetic woman in the room isn't the one doing the most. She's the one who knows she doesn't have to. So if you're tired of overgiving, overthinking, and overextending for a man who's under-delivering, stay exactly where you are. You're not crazy. You're not too much. You're just finally waking up to your value. Let's talk about what to do instead and why it works. Here's the hard truth. Most women ignore, and it's going to sting a little. The more you chase, the less he values you. We've been conditioned to believe that if we just love harder, give more, stay patient, or prove we're the one, eventually he'll see our worth. But the brutal reality, that kind of energy repels more than it attracts, because when you're constantly available, always initiating, and emotionally invested before he's even earned it, you're silently telling him one thing: I don't believe I'm enough to be chosen without effort. And no man, especially one who's emotionally immature or commitment avoidant, will respect a woman who doesn't respect her own energy. Now, this isn't about playing hard to get. It's not about pretending you don't care. This is about alignment, because attention that is forced, begged for, or manipulated is not real attention. And deep down, you know it doesn't feel good when it finally comes. The truth is, many women confuse anxiety with chemistry. You wait for that text, you decode every message, and you get a hit of dopamine every time he gives you a little. That's not love, that's a trauma bond. You've mistaken emotional unpredictability for passion. But listen closely, a man who wants you will make it unmistakably clear. You won't be wondering, you won't be analyzing every word, you won't feel like you're in a competition with other women for a spotlight you barely fit in. You'll know, because consistency feels different. Most women ignore this truth, because it's painful to accept that the one you want might not want you the same way. But what's more painful? Wasting your time waiting to be chosen by someone who only notices your absence, never your presence. So here's your wake-up call. Stop fighting for his attention, and start honoring your own. Pull your energy back. Sit in your power. Watch what happens. When you stop proving you're worthy, you give someone the opportunity to rise up and prove they're capable of loving you the way you deserve. And if they don't, that's your answer. So, what actually happens when you start pulling back? Here's what most people don't understand. Pulling back isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate anyone into chasing you. It's about reclaiming your power. And when you do it from a place of self-respect rather than revenge, everything shifts. The first thing that happens is internal. You start to feel the withdrawal. Yes, withdrawal. Because if you've been emotionally addicted to the highs and lows of his attention, pulling back will feel like breaking a habit. It's not easy. You'll be tempted to text, check his social media, drop a subtle hint, or post something just to get a reaction. That's the detox phase. Don't mistake discomfort for failure. It's a sign you're healing. But stay with it, because something else happens too. You begin to see clearly. With your emotions no longer wrapped around his approval, you start noticing things you used to excuse: his lack of effort, his inconsistency, the way you were always initiating, always showing up first. And for the first time in a long time, it clicks: you were doing way too much for someone doing the bare minimum. Meanwhile, on his end, yes, he feels it. Whether or not he says it out loud, people always notice when your energy shifts. They feel the silence when you stop reaching out. They feel the difference when they're no longer the center of your emotional world. Suddenly, you're not predictable. You're not always available. And that creates space. Space for curiosity, for reflection, and sometimes for regret. Now, here's the interesting part. Some men will come back. They'll notice the distance and try to re-engage. But pay close attention. because some are only returning to see if they still have access to you. That's not love, that's ego. Don't confuse a reaction with true intention. If he comes back, watch what he does, not just what he says. Other men, they'll stay gone. And that's your confirmation, because a man who truly values you won't let silence linger. He won't need to lose you to realize what he had. And the most important thing that happens, you change. You stop performing. You stop overgiving. You start building a relationship with yourself. You realize your peace is more valuable than someone else's inconsistent affection. You begin to radiate confidence, not because someone is validating you, but because you finally see your own worth, with or without them. When you pull back, you make space for what's real. You stop forcing and start attracting. And the right man? He won't need to be convinced. He'll recognize your value the moment you stop trying to prove it. That's the shift. That's the power of pulling back. Let's talk about something most women don't even realize they're missing: emotional confidence. And more importantly, how men actually respond to it. Emotional confidence is when you know who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you will and will not tolerate, without needing external approval to validate any of it. It's the energy of, I would love to share my life with someone, but I don't need you to complete me. Now here's the truth. When a woman embodies emotional confidence, it changes everything. Men notice it instantly. There's a presence about her. She's calm, grounded, unbothered. She's not reactive. She doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and she sure as hell doesn't compete. And because of that, she becomes magnetic. Men are naturally drawn to a woman who isn't trying to prove herself. It's refreshing. It's intriguing. It's rare. While so many are caught in a cycle of over-explaining, over-apologizing, and over-giving just to earn attention, the emotionally confident woman is doing none of that. She's focused. She's selective. She knows that access to her is earned, not freely given just because someone shows interest. Now, how do men respond? The wrong men, the emotionally unavailable, the manipulative, the insecure, they'll feel intimidated. They'll sense they can't control her with breadcrumbs or mind games. They won't be able to string her along with half effort because she simply won't tolerate it. To them, she's too much, not because she's loud or demanding, but because she's clear. And clarity scares people who rely on confusion to stay in power. But the right men, the grounded, masculine, emotionally mature men, they find emotional confidence irresistible. They feel safe around her, not because she's soft all the time, but because she's consistent. She doesn't make them guess. She communicates directly. She has standards, and because she doesn't need them, they can trust that when she chooses them, it's not out of desperation, it's out of desire. You see, emotional confidence tells a man, I don't fear being alone. I fear losing myself trying to keep someone who doesn't see my worth. And that kind of woman is unforgettable. When you embody this energy, you stop asking, why doesn't he text me back? And start thinking, why would I want someone who doesn't show up for me? You shift the dynamic. You create boundaries, not walls, that protect your peace. You stop reacting and start observing. You become the chooser. And here's the kicker. The emotionally confident woman doesn't just attract better men. She naturally repels the wrong ones. Her energy filters out anything that's not aligned with her value. So if you want a man to respect you, choose you, and show up consistently, start by showing up fully for yourself. That's the kind of energy no man forgets, and every good one will rise to meet. If there's one behavior that instantly lowers a man's respect for you, it's this over-explaining yourself and constantly justifying your worth. Let's break this down. Every time you explain why you're upset, why you need more from him, why you reacted a certain way, or why you're pulling back, and you over-explain it, what you're actually doing is seeking emotional permission. You're hoping that if you explain it just right, he'll suddenly validate your feelings, agree with your boundaries, and maybe, just maybe, change his behavior. But here's the hard truth. People don't respect what they don't have to earn. And the moment you start explaining every emotion you feel, every standard you hold, and every choice you make, you shift from being a woman of power to a woman of persuasion. And men, especially the emotionally unavailable ones, lose respect the moment they feel you're trying to convince them of your value. Here's what high-value women do instead. They state, they don't sell. If they don't like something, they say so. Once, if their boundary is crossed, they don't write an essay about it. They create distance. If they're hurt, they speak their truth calmly, but they don't try to control how it's received. Their worth isn't up for negotiation. Now, this doesn't mean shutting down emotionally or ghosting people. Emotional maturity is still key, but there's a big difference between communicating clearly and trying to manage someone's reaction to your truth. Stop doing that. Stop walking on eggshells hoping he'll see your side. Stop explaining your needs like they're a burden. You're allowed to want consistency. You're allowed to want effort. You're allowed to expect clarity, respect, and depth. If someone makes you feel like those things are too much, they're not your person, and that's not your failure. Here's what happens when you stop over-explaining. You get quieter, not cold, just clear. And in that silence, he starts to feel the weight of your absence. He realizes you're no longer performing for his validation. And if he respects you, he'll rise. If he doesn't, he'll fade. Either way, you win. Because you've stopped negotiating your worth. You have nothing to prove. Not your patience, not your loyalty, not your love. Those are sacred, and they're not given to anyone who makes you feel like you have to earn basic decency in return. So stop doing the emotional labor for two. Let your standards speak louder than your explanations. Because respect isn't earned by talking someone into seeing your value. It's earned when you stop tolerating behavior that ignores it. And the moment you stop chasing his approval is the moment you'll start attracting his respect, or something far better. So what exactly do high-value women do differently? It's not about money. It's not about looks. It's not even about being perfect. What separates a high-value woman from the rest is her energy, how she carries herself, what she tolerates, and how she shows up for herself when no one's watching. The first thing she does differently, she doesn't abandon herself for the hope of being chosen. She doesn't shift her personality to become what she thinks he wants. She doesn't shrink her standards to keep someone around. She knows that being loved while pretending is just rejection in disguise, and she refuses to betray herself like that. She also understands that her time and presence are valuable. She doesn't overinvest in someone who's under-delivering. She doesn't keep pouring into a situation where the energy is one-sided. The moment she sees patterns that don't align with her values, not just words but patterns, she pulls back, not as a punishment but as protection. She doesn't fear loss because she knows she'll never lose what's truly meant for her. Another major difference? She is unapologetically clear. High-value women don't do passive aggressiveness. They don't play games. They don't hint at what they want and hope he gets the message. They communicate directly because they know clarity is kind and confusion only wastes everyone's time. Emotionally, she's stable. She doesn't spiral when a man pulls back. She doesn't chase closure. She doesn't need constant reassurance to feel whole. She might want love, but she doesn't need it to validate who she is. And that subtle shift, that's what makes her magnetic. Because emotional independence is rare, and rare is always valuable. High-value women also protect their peace like it's sacred, because it is. If a man brings chaos, inconsistency, confusion, or emotional turmoil, she doesn't fight harder to fix it. She walks away, not dramatically. Not to make a point, but because she doesn't align with chaos anymore. She's not looking to be triggered. She's looking to be understood. And finally, she operates from abundance, not fear. She knows there's more than enough love in this world, more than enough emotionally available men, more than enough aligned connections. She doesn't act like every opportunity is her last, because she trusts her ability to attract, not chase. What high-value women do differently is not about controlling others. It's about controlling themselves, their standards, their reactions, their boundaries, and their beliefs. And in doing so, they naturally shift their entire reality. Because once a woman realizes she is the prize, she stops acting like a contestant. There's one switch, one internal decision that changes everything in how you approach men, dating, and love. And once you flip it, you don't go back. It's the moment you stop asking, "Does he like me?" and start asking, "Do I even like who I am when I'm with him?" Read that again. Most women are stuck in performative dating, constantly trying to impress, to be chosen, to be enough in someone else's eyes. The energy is focused outward. What does he think of me? Is he texting back? Am I doing too much? Not enough. It's exhausting. And worse, it's disempowering. But the switch, It happens when you reclaim your role as the observer, not the chaser. You stop analyzing every move he makes, and you start analyzing how you feel around him. Do you feel seen, safe, valued, or do you feel like you're in a silent competition with other women, or worse, with yourself? Once this switch flips, your energy changes. You become more still, more discerning. You stop emotionally investing in potential and start requiring proof. Not promises, not charm, not chemistry, but consistency, effort, emotional maturity. You stop getting attached to breadcrumbs because you're no longer starving for attention. And guess what? That shift doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how others respond to you. Because men can feel it. They can sense when your worth isn't up for negotiation. They know when you're not afraid to walk away from something that doesn't align with your peace. That energy, it commands respect without you having to ask for it. See, when you make this internal switch, you're no longer trying to win him over, he's trying to earn you. And not because you're being arrogant or withholding, but because you're rooted, you're whole. You've stopped outsourcing your self-worth to how someone else feels about you. And here's the kicker. Flipping this switch doesn't make you cold or closed off. In fact, it makes you more open, but only to what aligns. You're no longer trying to force connection where there's confusion. You're no longer staying in relationships just because of history or hope. You're honest with yourself. You listen to your intuition. You act accordingly. This is where your power lives, not in how much you give, not in how much you tolerate, but in how quickly you walk away from what no longer serves you. Without guilt, without drama, without second-guessing your worth. That's the switch. And once it flips, the same situations that used to break you no longer even shake you, because now you know you were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to receive it, fully, freely, and without fear. Let's get one thing straight. You don't need to play games to make a man crave you. The real magic doesn't come from being cold, manipulative, or unavailable on purpose. It comes from being centered. It comes from being deeply connected to yourself in a way that makes people want to be connected to you too. So how do you make a man crave you? Genuinely, without pretending to be someone you're not. It starts with emotional self-control. When you stop reacting to every little thing, a delayed text, a dry reply, a cancelled plan, you show that you're not led by your anxiety. You're led by your values. That calm, grounded energy is rare. It tells him, I'm not here to chase you. I'm here to observe you. That alone builds intrigue and respect. Next, you create space. Not distance, not silence to punish him, just space. You don't rush to fill the gaps with constant texts or over-explanations. You allow moments of absence. You give him the chance to wonder about you, think about you, miss your presence. Because craving is built in the space between certainty and curiosity. High-value women don't fear space. They know it's where desire breathes. You also make him crave you by being in your own lane. You're not sitting around waiting for his next move. You have a life. You're doing things that light you up. Hobbies, friendships, growth, purpose. This isn't fake independence. It's real wholeness. And men are drawn to that. When you're fulfilled with or without him, he starts to ask himself, how do I become a part of her world? That's when the energy shifts. Here's another secret. You let your standards do the talking. You don't nag, you don't beg, you don't repeat yourself. You simply show through your actions what you will and won't tolerate. If he steps up, you receive it. If he doesn't, you step back. That quiet self-respect, it speaks louder than any ultimatum ever could. And finally, you stay soft but strong. You're kind but not desperate. Open but not overexposed. Men crave the woman who is emotionally available without being emotionally dependent. The one who can be vulnerable without losing herself in the process. You don't make him crave you by trying harder. You do it by embodying the version of yourself that doesn't need him, but still desires real connection. That energy is addictive. It's not a game. It's alignment. It's knowing that if a man doesn't value you at your calmest, clearest, and most centered, he was never supposed to have you at all. If you take nothing else from this video, remember this. The most irresistible woman is the one who's unavailable to anything that doesn't match her peace, her purpose, or her value. Being unavailable doesn't mean being cold or closed off. It means being unreachable to the wrong energy. It means knowing what drains you, distracts you, and delays your growth, and refusing to let it have access to you anymore. When you become irresistibly unavailable, it's not about ignoring texts or playing hard to get. It's deeper than that. You're unavailable to men who only call when they're bored. You're unavailable to conversations that go nowhere. You're unavailable to situationships that keep you stuck in cycles of almost maybe and someday. You become unavailable to being someone's option. This is when everything shifts, not because men suddenly change, but because you do. You stop entertaining people who drain you. You stop trying to prove you're worthy. You stop hoping someone sees your value, because you already do. Men sense this. They feel when they can't just slide back in with a hey. They recognize that your energy isn't waiting around anymore. And that's what makes you magnetic. Not because you're withholding love, but because you've refined it. You've protected it. You've stopped giving it to people who only take without giving back. Being irresistibly unavailable means your attention is earned, not handed out. Your time is sacred, not filler. Your love is a privilege, not a prize to be won by someone who shows up when it's convenient. And here's the truth. Not every man will rise to meet you here. Some will fade. Some will call you too much, too picky, or too hard to read. But the right man, he'll recognize your stillness as strength, your standards as clarity, your boundaries as love, not just for yourself, but for the relationship you want to build. You weren't made to be half chosen, half loved, or half prioritized. You were made to be met, fully, deeply, and without conditions. So become the woman who no longer begs, proves, or chases. The one who knows her value so clearly, she becomes unavailable to everything that tries to diminish it. You'll find that when you stop showing up for what drains you, you finally make space for what's meant for you. That's the real glow up. That's the real shift. That's when love stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like peace. And peace, that's the new standard. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. If you've been feeling stuck or exhausted from chasing attention that never feels fully earned, remember this. You have the power to change your story starting right now. It begins with a choice. The choice to stop fighting for someone's attention and start fighting for your own peace. You've learned today that your worth isn't measured by how much someone else notices you, but by how deeply you know and honor yourself. You don't have to bend, explain, or beg to be seen. When you start holding yourself to a higher standard, everything changes. Your mindset, your energy, and how others show up for you. So what's next? First, take a moment to reflect on the patterns that no longer serve you. Maybe it's the need to over-explain or the fear of pulling back. Maybe it's the habit of giving too much without receiving enough. Identify those habits honestly, not to shame yourself, but to understand where your power has been leaking. Then, start practicing the switch we talked about. Shifting your focus from chasing external validation to nurturing your internal confidence. This is a process, not a perfect moment. Be patient with yourself. Every time you choose self-respect over desperation, you grow stronger. If you want more guidance on how to embody this energy and attract the kind of love you truly deserve, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'm going to share even deeper insights and strategies in upcoming videos that will help you elevate your dating life and your self-worth. And I want to hear from you. What's the biggest takeaway you're walking away with today? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community where we support each other in stepping into our highest value. Remember, this journey is about more than just relationships. It's about reclaiming your life and your joy. You deserve to be loved fiercely and freely, but it starts with you loving yourself first. Thank you again for being here. I can't wait to see the powerful woman you become when you stop fighting for his attention and start living for your own.